It's a Trumper Party market time. Our market, how it's actually going. And let's look at some stocks like Telstra and Boral. I'm Peter Switzer.
I'm Paul Rickard.
And we're mad about money. Now, Paul, is this the party we had to have with Donald Trump the host?
Well, look, it looks like it, Peter, and it's that's what the world is starting to say. I mean, I'm probably as surprised as you, but a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon, and Jeff, 10 cheers or 4 cheers for Donald, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, even 3. But the thing is,
I was looking for the magic number there.
But
you've got to go more with Trump, right?
That's right.
3's never enough.
But when you start putting the stories together, and a lot of people are now trying to justify the market's positivity, because you've got Dow Jones, S&P 500, Nasdaq. I think the Russell also, they're all at all-time highs, aren't they? And so this is extraordinary to see it happen, given the fact that everyone's negative about Donald Trump. Why do you think the market's become more positive about Donald Trump?
Look, I think it's partly relief. Relief that he's seems to be listening to people. Really, right from the very word go in terms of his victory speech when he listened to his advisors. Look, the appointments, they're okay. I mean, I don't think there's anything that the market's got too concerned about. And I think it's more just that we've been in the situation, we've had all these reasons not for the market to go up. You know, there is some underlying growth, and I think it's probably more just the fact that, well, we can't sell it, so therefore it's got to go back up, and Trump is sort of the excuse, and people are finding all these reasons. He's going to be great for the economy, he's going to be good for industrials and defence, and he's going to inflate things, and the tax cuts will be good for business. I just think there's sort of reasons after the event. I mean, this is all going to happen over years, not happening yet.
But what's also interesting is, it's like everyone's been crying out for someone who will think outside the square, and they'd love it to be someone more responsible than Donald. You know, imagine if it was, say, Richard Branson, who was an American. They'd say, oh yeah, Richard's done it at Virgin, he's a fairly responsible kind of guy, even though he's a bit wacky at times. But this guy really had so many sort of crimes against him, people didn't believe it. But the reality is, I think people are buying the fact that it could be less regulation on banks, therefore bank share prices will do well. You made the point about defence, infrastructure, all the building industries. He's not going to be as anti-coal and things like that. So the market said, wow, this is what we've been waiting for.
And I think he could actually be good for consumer confidence. I mean, you've got to forget, I mean, these central bankers are never going to do it, right? You know, the data-dependent Fed, you know, who can't make up their mind whether they want to raise rates or not rates and whether the economy is growing or not. Trump's out there saying, let's make America great, you know, again, and, you know, well, maybe that people just buy it, you know, and it's consumers will say, okay, well, he's going to turn it around. I mean, they've got to have something to believe in.
All right, well, the next question is...
The great white hope, is that right? The Trumper hope.
Don't say the great white dope, please, or the great orange hair dope. Let's go to our market. We're not as excited as the Americans. Is there a reason for that, Paul?
Well, I think our political environment is a little different. But look, anecdotally, it looks like, you know, if you look at here what's going on in the economy about some of what the retailers are saying, they said September and October were good months. We might become a little more excited in the coming months. And look, we're just going to follow the US lead, Peter. So if the US market goes, we're going to follow. I don't think there's any other domestic factors to take our market apart from the impact of commodity prices, which at the moment are positive.
Yeah, I guess the lower dollar's going to help. Trump's helped the dollar go down. I know Charlie Aitken he believes that we actually will outperform the US market because, and we are a long way behind our all-time high, aren't we? And when you look at it, the top 20 stocks have a lot of ticks at the moment. You like the banks?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for our market going is that the financials, that is the 4 major banks, which I like, and obviously we're following the lead in the US and they're going up, are in sort of back into rally phase, and we're getting the resources. You know, and so if we can get dragged up, if our 4 major banks and BHP and Rio and Woodside can head higher, this market has to go higher, right?
Yeah, and either Wesfarmers or Woolies will do, one or two will do well. Yeah. You know, maybe both of them could do well, who knows? So the top 20 could do, and that's a very big drag along for the stock market.
It's more important the top 20 does better than sort of the next 50, which is what we saw for most of this year. So I think that's why we're seeing in our market. Now, we're going to, if the US market gets nervous, we'll follow. You know, we've got I think you call it the exit.
Yeah.
The Italian
Itexit.
The Italian referendum looming over.
The Italian exit, the Itexit.
looming over our heads on December the 4th, and that could cause some pains for the market.
Yeah.
The US this week, Thanksgiving, it's going to be a fairly quiet week, you'd expect. They're in rally mode, so we probably all set for a couple of good days for our market, I guess.
Okay, let's look at some stocks locally. You wrote an interesting story about Telstra. Should people be buyers of Telstra, Paul?
Look, I think if you think the market's going to rally, Telstra's not the stock. It's back in the yield category. There are enough concerns about Telstra post 2022 for the market, at least the analysts, to stay a bit to negative to neutral. They are negative to neutral. I don't think they're going to re-rate Telstra in the short term. Sure, the yield is super attractive.
What is it?
Well, it's 6.4%, 9.1% on a grossed up basis. But the concern is not about Telstra's dividend this year or next year. It's about the sustainability of that dividend in a post-NBN environment. And despite what Telstra said last Thursday, they gave a pretty impressive presentation at an investor day. They haven't covered the gap yet, and Telstra's got to win back some credibility. It has to
the pressure on Andy Penn to come up with a big play to make this company really, and they should kick the lights out.
It has to show some growth. It has to be able to show its network is resilient and stable, and it can beat the other telcos. And maybe the market can get back into love, but I don't think it's going to fall in love with Telstra just yet. Okay,
Boral going to America.
Yeah, big play by Boral. You really wish Boral well. They're a good company. Mike Cain's a good CEO. This, as the papers have said, is a deal-changing thing for them because it's almost their entire market cap is being reinvested again in terms of the new acquisition. Their US revenue will now be about 38 to 40% of the company, so it's going to be almost as much as a US company as an Australian company. Big pause there for me. Like all acquisitions, I'm always nervous. Look, this is going to be a hard thing to integrate. They've got lots. They're talking about synergy benefits. Are they going to realise it? Look, the market, I think, is probably going to give it the tick, and we'll see that when the details of the capital raising are finalised today. But I don't know. When I get my rights, and shareholders, am I going to put more money into Boral? I don't know. I think the jury's out about big US takeovers by Australian
They're punting on the
companies.
Trumpet Party, aren't they?
Yeah, you can have. Yeah, they are, but that wasn't the motive. But that'll help. But look, bear in mind they're paying a full price for this company, and they've got all sorts of reasons around fly ash. But they also take on all sorts of these other businesses, and I don't know. I mean, I want them to succeed, but will I be putting more capital when I get my rights? And we'll have till the middle of December to decide what to do with your rights as a Boral shareholder. I don't know yet. I'm sort of sitting on the sidelines thinking track record is against Australian companies doing these sort of deals.
Okay, and one last thing I'd say, they're buying a company called Headwaters, and that's very close to Headwinds, isn't it?
It's sort of, the naming doesn't give you a lot of confidence, does it? But they're a good team at Boral, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm Peter Switzer.
I'm Paul Rickard.
And we're mad about money.